The NFC runs through Philadelphia. For the first time since 2017, the Eagles are the 1 seed going into the playoffs. They have won the division again. They held off the Giants. The Cowboys are getting their butts kicked by the third string quarterback of the Washington Commanders. And all is right in the world once again. Welcome into the BGN Instant Reaction Show. I'm Jess Taylor. As always, I have Shane Haff here with me. Ray Shell's behind the glass. She'll hop on with us at some point to talk about what's going on Twitter, to see what the reactions are today after finally Jalen Hurts is back to us and not necessarily looking like himself, shaking off the rust a little bit, which is what we expected. We wanted this game, so we didn't have to wait for this kind of game, trying to figure it out, get the timing back, getting back in rhythm. We didn't want that week 1 of the playoffs. We wanted him to be able to get back out there, feel it a little bit, what's going on, have the bye week to rest up a little bit more. Then we can, grab the bull by the horns going into the playoffs. What are you feeling? And we were just sort of talking about this off camera, like previewing this game. You had no idea what you were going to get. What were the Giants going to do? Who were they going to play? Who were they going to sit? What did it matter to them? What was going to be of the Eagles? How were they going to take this game? How were they going to operate? Were they going to operate it almost like a preseason game, right? Where they don't do anything too crazy. They just kind of try to get some reps in there and come away with the win.
Yeah, it turns out the Giants were all up for doing some crazy things. Onside kick to start the third quarter. They had I don't know if it was a throwback play. I don't know exactly what it was going to be. It got blown up, but
Not good.
The Eagles got a sack on a receiver, which is always indicative of some shenanigans going on. It was just a weird game. Ultimately, it's hard for me to take a lot away from team performance here because the Eagles were obviously offensively playing with one hand tied behind their back, playing very vanilla. But looking at some of the individual performances, it was really nice to see Robert Quinn on the field and sort of make an impact. I mean, he doesn't get a sack or anything, but he had one clip that I tweeted out where he had just a super fast win off of the edge, and he flushed the quarterback out of the pocket. He doesn't come away with the sack, but he had another good insta-shed on a run play, and he got hands on the running back. He doesn't end up bringing him down, so you want to see that a little better. But it was good to see a little explosiveness back from him. That would obviously be huge if he can give the Eagles something worthy of a fourth-round pick investment into the playoffs, especially not knowing what you're going to have with Josh Sweat. And then just seeing Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back on the field. He was active early, made a couple of plays. So getting him back from injury, those were kind of the two biggest things for me. And then, of course, obviously, Jalen Hurts coming back, and shoulder looked fine. He threw the ball all over the football field. So everything looked good for me as far as guys coming back from injury, which is really what I was most concerned about.
Yeah, guys coming back from injury looking like somewhat of themselves, as you said, with them sort of with a hand tied behind their back and not doing anything too crazy, and ultimately coming out of the game healthy as well. Or, get the win, get a couple reps under your belt, and don't get anybody else hurt was really, the goals for the week, right? That's what you wanted to see out of this Eagles team. The one, I don't know if I want to call it a concern, because you're right. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with a, very vanilla game plan, right? And I would say, yeah, that's fine for this week if that almost isn't what I felt like we had been seeing from the offense for the last couple weeks. Now, I know Gardner Minshew was under center the last couple weeks. However, I still feel like while he did not play well, I don't feel like the offensive game plan or the play calling did him any favors in that situation either. And now that's been a couple weeks in a row there. Now, again, today, different. But because we've been having a little bit of this that we've seen the last couple weeks, are you concerned about that going into the playoffs or going forward?
No, I'm not really. The Saints have a really good defense, if you want to go back to last week. They've got a really good defense. I think the Eagles thought Marshawn Lattimore was going to be out, and so they looked at what Gardner Minshew did against Dallas 2 weeks ago, and they said, we can throw on this team, and maybe they were a little slow to adjust to running the ball more there. But game planning for a backup quarterback, that's not the easiest thing to just switch up what you're going to do, especially when you're going from a guy like Jalen Hurts,
Sure.
And so much of your passing and your rushing attack is predicated off of his mobility
Right.
to a guy like Gardner Minshew. And sometimes Philadelphia fans, we get a little nostalgic about backup quarterbacks. I can't imagine why, but that was just a masterclass in 2017, what Doug was able to do and Frank Reich with Nick Foles. And that was a total play style shift as well, going from Carson Wentz, who was mobile at that point in his career somewhat, to Nick Foles, who was not. I don't think you expect that. Today, just very clear, they were not going to let Hurts run the ball. They weren't going to let Hurts take hits. And, people were saying on Twitter, I was getting a lot of run the ball like we do at every Eagles game. We bash our heads against the run the ball wall all the time. But the same people were arguing all week that Hurts needed to play. You need to get the rust off. He's not going to get the rust off handing the ball off. And it's not like they're going to run zone reads and give him the option to keep the ball. So I didn't have any problem with him throwing the ball. Get him some live game reps. It's not like he took 3 sacks. Like 2 of them he sat down because pressure was coming and he didn't take a hit. So it's not like he was out there taking hits. I was fine with it. They could always, and they did, when they needed to, they went on a 7-minute drive and they killed the clock running the ball. They know they can do that. And we know they can do that. It doesn't get you anything for getting ready for the playoffs to run the ball on a second-string defense 14 times and eat 7 minutes off the clock. I think they were trying to get some rhythm, some timing back with the receivers and the quarterback. And I personally didn't have any problem with it. I never felt like the game was in jeopardy. And I think if they had felt like the game was in jeopardy, they would have done it a little bit differently. But I think they were just using this game. You clinch the 1 seed, and they're using it to sharpen up a little bit for the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think that that was sort of exactly what they need. There was a different demeanor from kickoff, right? Like, I think everybody felt that. There was a different – you felt so – it didn't matter what happened the last 2 weeks. You see Jalen Hurts jog out on that field, and you all that calm demeanor that he has is so infectious. Like, you don't get nervous anymore. You don't get concerned. You just sit there and you're like, all right, Jalen's got it. And we did not feel that way the last 2 weeks. And I don't miss feeling uneasy and sitting at the edge of my chair for an entire football game. I like feeling calm and like feeling relaxed. And, I also think that the defense has played, really well these last 2 weeks. And I think they've adjusted a little bit. You're absolutely right that getting, CJ Gardner-Johnson back is huge for them and what they need to do. I think it'll be interesting to see what team ends up coming through here for that first playoff game. Yeah,
and 2 things here. First of all, I've forgotten what it was like not to be stressed out by watching my quarterback in the pocket. Right. I'd kind of forgotten that over the last 2 weeks. Just every snap, just watching Minshew's feet and wondering what in the world was about to happen. And I just forgot how much fun it is to not watch that.
Yeah. Secondly,
a likely opponent in this divisional round of the playoffs is the Giants. I think they're going to end up matching up with the Vikings. It could be the 49ers, in which case they're gone. But there's a chance they're going to match up with the Vikings. And if they match up with the Vikings, I would assume they're going to win, and they could be back at Lincoln Financial Field 2 weeks from today. So just again, you're not going to tip anything. You don't want to show them any of your stuff. Just that vanilla game plan, I think that was all by design. And it worked. And maybe people didn't want to watch the whole game or feel bad about it going in. It doesn't matter how you enter the playoffs. Think back to 2017. I wasn't here, but people in other circles, we were debating, should the Eagles start Nate Sudfeld in the playoffs? Should his first career start come in the playoffs because Nick Foles had been so bad? And he was so bad in the first half of that Falcons game and then came alive in the second half, and the rest is history. And so I don't buy the momentum. You don't need style points. You need to get into the playoffs. You need to do it with health, which they did as much as possible today, and you need to do it with the simplest path possible. They've got the bye. The road to the Super Bowl runs through Philadelphia. So in my book, they checked all the boxes today, except having a punter that can punt the football, but that's a whole other thing that's been going on all season.
Do you want to get into a special teams conversation? Is that what we have to do? We have to check our special teams box for the day?
Yeah, maybe so. We have to have our requisite complaining about the special teams. But, man, Kern was awful, wasn't he? That 29-yard punt, that was it wasn't even a shank, just an awful punt.
Yeah.
I did just check the scores here because I wasn't keeping up with it well. So San Francisco did win. So
Yeah.
I believe that gives them the 2 seed.
Uh-huh.
So that's who the Giants will play in the first round. Now, that wasn't a given at the time of kickoff, but so whoever the 7 seed is that will play. No. The 7 seed plays the 2 seed. So yeah, the Giants and Vikings will face off, and so I said very very possible that the Eagles and the Giants will repeat in 2 weeks after the Giants beat the Vikings.
Let me ask you this. So one of the silver linings for me personally with the loss to Dallas was I do not like, I wouldn't have wanted to see Dallas again having beat them twice already. That third matchup, that would have made me uneasy. Some people have been like, already won 2, totally fine going into a third. For me, I would have been weary of that. That would have been very unsettling for me personally. I don't feel that same way about the New York Football Giants.
Yeah. I wouldn't, honestly, I wouldn't be concerned with either at the moment. I mean, Dallas just lost to Washington, and
at the moment, no, not at all.
Yeah, turnovers have been a huge issue for Dak since he's come back from his injury. He's averaging over an interception a week. He threw a pick 6 today. They're not firing on all cylinders. They've got a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball. And then the Giants are a better coach team, but they're a less talented team. And those are your 2 likely opponents. If not the Giants beating the Vikings, then the Dallas Cowboys probably beat the Buccaneers, although they look to be in, playoff form today, botching this against Sam Howell and the Commanders. It's maybe Tampa Bay's your opponent. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's a likely matchup with one of those 2 teams, and I think Eagles fans should feel good about a matchup with either one. The Eagles are a better team. They're playing better football regardless of how you feel about today. Like, the Eagles are a better team, and they're playing better than either of those teams right now. I'd feel pretty confident to beat either one coming into the link.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think that again, having beat Dallas, if they were to have won both matchups with a team that just, Dak is not playing well, but has the ability to turn that on. They do have a lot of weapons on offense. And obviously, the Eagles had their stars, and they lost Devontae Maddox, obviously, in that game. But for the most part, they had their core group of guys there, and they still let the Cowboys put up 40 on them a couple weeks ago. Now, also, the Dallas Cowboys defense allowed Gardner Minshew to turn the ball over 4 times and look as bad as he did, and still put up 34 points and over 300 yards. So take that information how you will. But given where everything is right now, you're absolutely correct. If the likelihood being those 2 teams, neither of them concern me at this point. You can't overlook any team, obviously, right? But neither of those teams have me, shaking in my boots over here, waiting for them to come through Philadelphia once again. Playoff Philadelphia. Yeah,
absolutely. And you saw things from the offense that were good today. To AJ Brown or I guess it's not AJ Brown to Jalen Hurts. We can flip that. The Jalen Hurts to AJ Brown connection's still there. He goes 4 for 95, breaks Mike Quick's record. He's now the single season yardage leader for the Eagles. And by the way, thank you, Titans, for deciding AJ Brown wasn't worth paying. But so AJ Brown, he has a little bit of a get-right game after the last game. Devonta Smith had a good game, I thought, 7 for 67. Dallas Goedert got back involved more than he was with Gardner Minshew. And the Eagles' weapons were there. Miles Sanders didn't look particularly explosive today. And I thought they probably came into this game planning to limit his touches. Obviously, he had the knee brace on last week and some of that to try to get him 100% for the playoffs. Now, I would have had Trey Sermon active. I don't know why they didn't have Trey Sermon active if they were going to limit Sanders, but I thought the offense looked good when they wanted and needed to today. The red zone, they obviously suffered, kicked a lot of field goals. It just shows you how much the Eagles rely on Jalen Hurts' legs in the red zone. And it's not just that he runs the ball in, but they run so much of the bootleg stuff and the little RPO where he releases where he runs out into the flat and can throw it, and so much of what they do in the red zone is built on his mobility, and without that, they did struggle today. But I don't think it was a case of Jalen Hurts being less than 100%. I don't think they would have put him out there if he wasn't healthy. I just think it was we're not going to go take hits in this game because we don't need to. And I would fully expect in the playoffs for the gloves to be off and Hurts to play just like he did, the rest of the season prior to the injury.
They didn't need Trey Sermon because they had giant killer Boston Scott, who showed it once again. Like, you think after all these years they would try to learn how to stop that guy? That guy is about my size, okay? And he just wreaks havoc on them left and right. What was it? 10 of his 17 career touchdowns, 10 of them are against the Giants. That's pathetic by the Giants defense. That's pathetic. Beyond pathetic.
The Eagles should just fully dedicate to the bit and just start Boston Scott and give him 30 carries if they meet up with the Giants in the playoffs. Let's see if we can get Boston Scott. It'd be the answer to a trivia question someday. This back had 300 yards in the divisional round of the 2023 playoffs and doubled his season yardage total. Now, who is Boston Scott, right? The way he just, I don't know, it's just funny at this point how he just kills the Giants whenever they play.
It really is. It's enjoyable, and I don't understand it. All right, let's see what's going on in the world of Twitter, because I can, as always, see this going either way. I can see people being kind of level-headed like we are, right? Got out healthy, got Hurts the reps, got the win. Let's just take the bye and move on. And I'm sure there's a fraction of this fan base where the sky is falling and everything is going wrong. Is there? Tell me I'm wrong, please.
That fraction of the fan base was all over my Twitter mentions all game.
I saw that.
So they are there. I promise you.
They do exist.
I promise you.
I've spotted one so far. One. Okay? And it says, packing Gannon's bags. Oh, God. That's all I've seen so far. If we're talking, negativity, who needs to get fired. Oh, no. Okay. I see fire Gannon, Steichen. Sure. All right, so that's two. We got two. But other than that, majority of them are positive. First round bye. Somebody said Hurts not 100%, which he wasn't. We didn't get to see the flashy, exciting Jalen Hurts today, but we still want him to be healthy going into the playoffs, so I understand that as well. I see missing Doug Peterson. 2 weeks.
Don't start with me right now. Oh,
yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy.
I love Doug Peterson as much as the next person. Yeah. I'm so happy for Doug Peterson. I can't even tell you. I can confirm I would still die for Doug Peterson.
Yeah.
Don't start that mess with me right now.
That's crazy.
I wanted to send him some ice cream last night after he clinched, but I didn't know how to get it there without melting. So, Doug, if you're watching this, I tried.
You tried. But other than that, everybody's just talking about the number 1 seed. A couple people said that was ugly. Dallas still sucks. No major injuries. So, there were a couple that were negative, but for the most part, people are very excited about what they were able to accomplish today.
Dallas does still suck.
Yes.
That is
true. And so this is now the winningest season in Eagles history. They've never had a 14-win season before. They've had a 13-win season 2 times. 2004. Obviously, they went on to lose in the Super Bowl to the cheating Patriots. And then 2017 when they beat the cheating Patriots in the Super Bowl. So I don't know who they're going to match up with in the Super Bowl this year. It won't be the Patriots. I'm pretty sure they were eliminated today. But obviously the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl because that's what happens if they win 13-plus games.
And who knows what's going to happen? What's the trend going to be when they win 14?
Yeah.
It's going to be a whole new world. I do see one tweet that says people stop complaining, and I'm with that guy, honestly, because do you really want to sit here and complain about today? Jalen Hurts is back. He's clearly fine. Obviously, we didn't see it all today, and he was, thankfully, being super cautious. You saw, like Shane, you said, 2 of his sacks, he sat down to not take the hit, which we love. We want that from him right now. Don't care. What? I
choose to believe he was trolling Giants fans, pulling the Eli Manning and just sitting down.
That would be even better. That would be even better for him to still keep his demeanor, his everything, and have the wherewithal to just troll Giants fans. That would be tremendous. I don't think there's anything really to be concerned about. I told you the game planning has been concerning me for a couple weeks now offensively, but like again, it's so hard to judge and compare because of the way that they had to plan for Gardner Minshew and how different it is and the complete different style of play that you have from a guy like Jalen Hurts. But do we really want to sit here and complain, like walking into the first round bye with the 1 seed, 14-win season, almost did they end up getting any more than 70 sacks, or did they end with 70 for the regular season?
Was it 69 or 70?
They had 70 at one point.
Okay, then that's what they stuck at because they got 2. So, yeah, by the way, Davis Webb is despicable.
Yeah.
It's despicable. Hassan Reddick has you dead to rights, 15 yards in the backfield, and he just tosses the ball over. I'll take an intentional grounding. Don't sack me, please. Like, come on, NFL. That's got to count as a sack. But the Eagles came into the game needing, I think it was 4 sacks to tie the record, 5 to surpass the record, and they got 2 sacks. They sacked a punter and a wide receiver. Davis Webb has never taken a sack in his 7-year NFL career. Now, granted, this is only the first game he started. He had a couple kneel downs in Buffalo last year, but the dude I'm not sure it's possible to sack him. Until that happens, I refuse to believe it's possible.
So going into the bye, a very calm and stress-free super wild card weekend now because there's an extra game. What do you want to see out of next weekend? In your perfect world, what happens next weekend in wild card weekend for you?
I want to run through the entire division. Give me the Giants beating the Vikings, and then an Eagles-Giants game in the divisional round, and then give me the Cowboys getting to the conference title game at Eagles-Cowboys in the NFC title game. Let's do that.
Personally, I really enjoy the jokes about the Cowboys not having won a playoff game in as many years as they have.
Yeah.
That's true. Them losing to Tom Brady next weekend would also be hilarious.
It would.
Losing to Tom Brady and then Tom Brady having to come here and lose to Jalen Hurts, that would just bring me joy in ways that I can't even explain to you.
I would love to see a Dak versus Jalen Hurts playoff game, though. Those teams were both so good this year, and I felt a little bit robbed that we never got to see them play each other. Uh-huh. So wouldn't hate that. I also wouldn't hate to see them lose to the Buccaneers next weekend, though. The 8-9 Buccaneers, by the way. Every team in the NFC East finished with a better record than every team in the NFC South. And so it would be hilarious just to see the Bucs knock off the Cowboys next weekend.
We definitely deserve to see Jalen Hurts, Dak, for sure. So, yeah, we got to see that happen.
One other thing, and I think you saw a little bit of the Eagles preparing for a Cowboys matchup, was Chauncey Gardner-Johnson playing in the slot. I didn't think that the Eagles would do that. I said it's what I would do. I didn't think that they would do that. And you saw him playing in the slot today. I don't know if that says something. That might say something about Avonte Maddox's timetable. They don't think he's going to be back because if he was going to be back in 2 weeks, why would you put Chauncey Gardner-Johnson there? I don't know what to read into that, but it does tell me they realize that defending slot receivers is a problem. Teams are going to put their best receiver in the slot against you in the playoffs, and when that happens, the Eagles can drop Chauncey Gardner-Johnson into the slot, which is where he played with the Saints. It was his natural position, but them giving him some reps here kind of gave you a little bit of insight into what they might try to do against a CeeDee Lamb in the slot or against a Brandon Ayuk in the slot if they match up against the 49ers, something like that.
That's really scary.
Which I don't hate. At the end of the day, you just need to put your guys in the best position to win and to win the matchups that you're given. And you're absolutely right. They've gotten crushed by guys in the slot this year. And if that's and especially because Avonte Maddox has missed as much time as he has, which is unfortunate because he had a really good season last year and was playing extremely well. So all they needed to do was sort of shore up the back end, which they did. So losing him has hurt in different spots, especially when, everything's going well and, it's 3rd and 30 and he gets hurt and they have to adjust right then and there. And obviously we saw what happened from that point on. So, I agree with you that I am surprised that we actually saw the Eagles make that adjustment, because I feel like they tend, if we still have to make complaints about Jonathan Gannon at the moment, that would be my one complaint, that he doesn't necessarily adjust as quickly as sometimes we would like. I think he can be a little bit hard-headed there, but that is something that, they're going to face some tough guys from that position coming into the playoffs. So good on the Eagles for making the adjustment now.
I had a question. Kind of want to get Shane, your thoughts on Kaiser White's performance today.
I thought he played better today than what we've seen the last couple weeks, I thought. Now, obviously, you can put the caveat of who are the Giants' receivers, tight ends, quarterback, but I didn't really see him out of position a lot today. He seemed to play faster, which is obviously good. He seemed tentative, like he's thinking too much instead of reacting the last couple weeks, and I did think he played better this week, which is good. That's good for them heading into the playoffs, because I do think he's been one of the weaknesses of their defense over the last couple weeks.
And do you think they would ever, I guess we would have seen it by now. They're not going to start this at this point, but in that situation, why not, with how well they were playing as a collective, cohesive unit, as a team, why not give Nakobe Dean a few of those snaps here and there? Because you saw when Kaiser White got hurt earlier in the season and they put Nakobe Dean out there. Kaiser White got hurt against the Titans. They put Nakobe Dean out there against the Tennessee Titans and Derrick Henry. And Nakobe Dean was tackling Derrick Henry with one arm and was flying all over the field in ridiculous speeds. So why not, if Kaiser White is struggling, which you're absolutely correct, he has been heavily the last couple weeks, why not give Nakobe Dean a couple snaps here and there in case you need to pull him in, especially in a crucial playoff situation?
Yeah, I think it's too late to make that move now.
For sure.
Even, and I've had people tell me, Nakobe Dean's a great player, he's super smart, and that's all true. And he's super smart. I don't know if it's true that he's a great NFL player yet. We'll have to see, but he was a great college player, certainly, has that championship pedigree, all of that. But it's not just about individual skill. It's about chemistry and collective cohesiveness, because so much of the Eagles' defense is passing off routes and knowing what your teammate's going to do before he does it, not having to think about it. And so just inserting a different guy, even if he's a better player, and I don't know that he would be as a rookie right now, but even if he's a better player, it's still going to lead to some of those communication breakdowns. And also, at some point today, Dean went off to the locker room or the medical tent. I think it was after a special teams play, so I'm not sure. He got a little banged up today as well. But yeah, I think Kaiser White's your linebacker or your second linebacker for the playoff run, and I think they'll probably feel good about Dean next year moving forward, and White will move on. But it's definitely too late, given the fact he hasn't played this year, to make a move like that.
Yeah. Just wondered what your thoughts were there, because he's someone who I would have, now, granted, had the Eagles maybe had the same linebacker problems they've been having for the last ever, we might have seen him sprinkled in there a little bit more. But for once, we actually didn't really have any issues at the linebacker position. So, having to throw the young kid in there to get him a little bit of experience, get him those reps, was really unnecessary, because we actually had linebackers that can, linebacker.
Sometimes I miss tweeting screenshots of Nate Gary with his back to the line of scrimmage while the quarterback has the ball and things like that. There's just a, everybody has that little part of them that just likes to complain, and sometimes the Eagles Twitter has a huge part of them that likes to complain, but that little part of me, sometimes it just springs up. It's like, man, I could use a Nate Gary screenshot to tweet my outrage about right now.
Nope. I don't miss that at all. No, I don't miss, listen, I don't miss being exactly where the Denver Broncos were when they had to use a graphic and they were trying to highlight their team in the graphic, and one of those players was Alex Singleton. That's where the Denver Broncos were this season, and I don't miss being there at all.
No, okay, you talked me out of it. I don't miss it that much. I'll just go search back for some of the Nate Geary tweets sometime.
Yeah.
I'll live through that nostalgia.
Yeah, give a little giggle to yourself and then absolutely move on. All right, let's just real quick. What if you had to sum up this season, regular season, where they are today? Jalen Hurts went 41 as the starter this season after all of the questions going into last offseason, not knowing what we were going to get, not knowing what we were going to see from this team. Summing up in one word, one sentence, what your feelings are in this regular season going into the playoffs, what would it be?
You love this one word thing, and I never know what to say.
I know, because it really makes you uncomfortable.
Satisfied.
Your face.
That's going to be mine. I'm going to say, like, I'm satisfied. I feel like, 14 wins, like, that's a really big deal. In the team, this holistically, the team looks complete. So it's like, if they're already looking like this right now, I have faith that they can win the Super Bowl, but for next season, like, I'm confident that they could run it back when they win the Super Bowl. We're gonna speak it. They're gonna win the Super Bowl. But I think this is like satisfied. Like, you can't really be upset. I'm not like how else would you feel about this? You know, we're in a good place right now, so it's just a good place.
I'll say surprised. I thought the Eagles would be good. I thought that Jalen Hurts would take a step this year. I said the Eagles would be like a 11-ish win team. I thought they would be in the playoffs. I thought they would compete for the NFC East. I never expected the NFC East to be this good across the board. Certainly didn't expect, Jalen Hurts to be in an MVP conversation, 14-1 as a starter, for the defense to be on the cusp of setting a sack record. So it's exceeded my expectations. I thought the Eagles would have a good season, and they surprised me, and they had a great season, and it's been a heck of a ride.
Yeah, I would say I'm impressed. I'm beyond impressed with the way that some of these young players and coaches have grown in just one off season. And we've talked a lot about how the I guess the bar for the season was you should be able to win the NFC East. That's like the minimum. That was the marker for success. Win the NFC East, get into the playoffs, and then see what happens. That was sort of the criteria for success on the season and seeing what they could do. Because you're right, like, I didn't expect the NFC East to be this good. I know that all of the teams did a lot to improve, right? Like, Dallas is always competitive. The Giants were making moves to try to improve. The Commanders were making moves to try to improve. Everyone was growing in the right direction. So it was going to be competitive, and everyone needs to kind of stay keeping up with each other because it is a competitive division. But, my thought process trying to temper my expectations for the season was winning the NFC East, I would be satisfied because they showed last year that they had the capability to do so. And with what they added, absolutely, this should have been their division. I didn't think that the division was going to be this good. And I'm beyond impressed with the fact that the Eagles were able to win 14 games. Jalen Hurts only lost one football game. And he's a legitimate MVP candidate. And he showed you now, like, if he loses the MVP to Patrick Mahomes, I think the Kansas City Chiefs are in the exact same boat. Like, you take Patrick Mahomes away from the Kansas City Chiefs, they plummet the exact way that the Eagles did when you take Jalen Hurts out of that offense. But he showed you, and the team showed you, why they need him in there and why he is the most valuable player that they have on this team. So I am beyond impressed with what Jalen Hurts did, especially given, I do think he was dealt a tough hand in the situation he was drafted into. Like, I obviously now the pick makes sense, right? But at the time, they had just given Carson Wentz all that money. You don't understand. I mean, he had limped them into the playoffs with no receivers, with no help. And what did they do? They drafted Jalen Reagor and then drafted Jalen Hurts. And you're looking at this thinking, what on God's green earth is Howie Roseman attempting to do to this team? And nobody, Joe Montana, Tom Brady was not helping the 2020 Philadelphia Eagles. Like, they were beyond help. They were 4-11-1, beyond help. being a part of all that and all the drama that sort of was going on inside, outside, and came out of that season, the fact that he was able to have as cohesive of a sophomore season as he did and be as impressive as he is right now, I mean, just shows you so much about who he is as a person and as a player. I'm beyond impressed with him and what he's done for this football team, because I did not after the 2020 season, I didn't expect to be this happy with the Eagles for a long time. I was prepared for like 5 years of misery.
Yeah, if you get quarterback right, everything else falls into place. Everything else can fall into place pretty quickly, and and Howie did a great job rebuilding the roster. So here we are.
I do have to agree with this one right here. 49ers. I'm a little scared. Because Brock Purdy is doing his thing right now. So that was a comment I saw I had to point out.
You know what doesn't concern me about that, though?
What?
So last year, Jalen Hurts was in a rhythm, playing extremely well heading into the playoffs, and the Eagles were a hot team rolling into the playoffs. And he went and faced a complete team in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that was the first time I saw Jalen Hurts wide-eyed. Like, he looked uncomfortable, and that they fell apart. Well, I think the 49ers are rolling right now. I think there's a very good chance that Brock Purdy could all of a sudden be under this playoff microscope and crumble. Or I'm just going to keep telling myself that.
Yeah, whatever makes yourself feel better. We don't have to worry about them until an NFC title game if they get there. So we'll preview that like 3 weeks from now.
Yeah.
We'll just get to enjoy a weekend of competitive football, some good football games. We don't have to worry. We don't have to think. We can just sit, have some beers, some wine, whatever your preference is, and just enjoy some football. The Eagles are the NFC East champions. They're the number 1 seed. The road to the Super Bowl comes through Philadelphia once again. First round bye. Thank you for joining us for another episode of this lovely post-game show that we've gotten to do every week this year. And such a happy season. It's so fun to just not complain and be sad and rehash the same things week in and week out. So thank you once again for joining us. Make sure you're subscribed to the Bleeding Green Nation podcast so you can listen to all the good stuff that we put out week in, week out. Thank you for joining us. From myself, Shane, Rachel, go Birds, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
Go Birds.